May the gods keep the wolves in the hills and the women in our beds.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen.
Blood you seek, you're welcome to join us.
The Thessalonian you're fighting. He's the biggest man I've ever seen. I wouldn't want to fight him.
That's why no one will remember your name.
When all else fails, fresh tactics.
You don't set out to build a wall. You don't say, I'm going to build the biggest, baddest, greatest wall that's ever been built. You don't start there. You say, I'm going to lay this brick as perfectly as a brick can be laid. Yeah. And you do that every single day. And soon you have a wall.
Welcome to the My Father podcast, where men on the same mission come to grow, have discussions, and educate one another. If you want to become a supporter or join our community, go to www.my-father.com. Welcome back, everybody, to the My Father podcast. I am joined here with a couple friends. I have Mikhail, Jr., and Chris. Today we're going to be discussing men and emotion. I know it's a topic that not a lot of people like to talk about, but we feel like it's something that needs to get talked about. So, Mikhail, did you get a chance to write any questions down this time?
Yeah, I did.
Throw one out there.
You want me to start off? Okay,
yeah.
Great. Distinguishing feelings from emotions.
Ooh, yeah. Are you talking primary and secondary?
No. Although I think that would be a spin-off question in regards to emotions, but how do we distinguish to filter our feelings and expressing them in regards to how we choose to, what emotions we choose? So then, example, like you mentioned, primary, secondary, a feeling of fear is then, masked or compounded until it becomes anger, and then as the emotion expressed is then anger.
Yeah, exactly.
So
give me an example. Give me an example of what you meant then. I'm kind of confused by that.
I would say, do we identify our feelings, or are we still largely caught in reacting off our emotions? Not saying that we're not humans and we don't. I get mad just as much as the next guy. But, being able to distinguish them and what that process looks like for men, because it's not a society has not taught us how to do that. So it's been a struggle to do that and figure that and navigate that world on our own.
Is your question, what does that look like? How to do that?
How do you? Yeah, that's a good question.
I think with me, it's more of it's usually after I've had my incident where I've handled it incorrectly, and then I go and sit and think on it, and then I'm kind of like, yeah, I handled that one wrong. Once you have time to let it sink in. Now in the moment when I have caught it, I think is when I'm very aware. Like I have to know that it's going to go somewhere where I don't want it to, and kind of shut it off before it gets there. Because once it's kind of already starts getting me like worked up or something, or whatever it may be, it's too far. I'm lost in it. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
What do you think, Chris?
I don't know how to answer that. I mean,
that's fair.
For me, it's difficult to. Well, it was difficult. Hold on, guys.
He's got the answer.
Uh-huh.
No, it's because Rave just got here. So I have to go to the room.
He's gonna go closet the office.
Listen. I don't talk about my feelings that much. Okay.
Okay. Well, that's what this is for. This is exactly what this is
for. So here's the thing. For me, it's hard to like talk about my feelings, especially with male or female, because I don't know if my parents ever did actually teach me how to, distinguish from my actual feelings to me reacting.
Yeah.
So for me, I think I'm more used to like reacting, and it never ends well. But I've been trying to teach myself how to not engage into my reactions rather than sit there and just start to think about it. It's really hard for me.
When you say you're trying to teach yourself, what does that look like?
Calling myself names and walking away, like stop saying stupid shit, or I don't know, like
yeah.
You know.
What do you think? What are you, Junior? What do you think?
I think it's kind of a difficult question to like circumvent because like emotions and feelings are almost the same, but the difference is the reaction. Reactions are your emotions and feelings are what you're holding in and what you don't want to talk about. And so when you got something that's going on in your life, sometimes your feelings and your reactions act totally different. So you could be saying one thing to yourself that you're going to do, and then you do the total opposite. So it could be an intense conversation with somebody that's getting you very upset. And so you want to handle it the right way, but it comes out totally wrong. It can be something about a romantic conversation, like you're trying to express your feelings, but everything comes out wrong and your reactions are totally different from what you thought you were going to do. So it all depends on the situation. So like the more situations you have, the better you get at it, and the more you can rely on your emotions instead of your feelings, and you can deal with your feelings later. So
to piggyback on that, I think I had to become aware of it first. I didn't know what emotions were or how to identify them, and so I couldn't control. If you can't name it, you can't tame it, type of thing. Yep. And so I had to figure out what that was to then identify. Oh, that's what I'm doing. So I think it's important.
Or somebody else telling you because of the way you're acting.
To be honest, when someone tells me, I think you're so far gone that you're like, I don't give a fuck what it is.
Yeah. Once we're past that point, once you're past that, when I was dating a woman that I thought I was going to marry, but we didn't end up getting married. But the good thing that came out of that was we went to some marriage counseling groups, and here's a funny story. We actually lied and said we were married because everybody else in the group had been married for such a long time. And so we felt so out of place. So we just lied and said we were married, and like she had her engagement ring, and I said I left my ring at home, whatever, and they didn't question it, right? Because we were there and we went to 2 different sessions of this marriage group. I learned a lot about myself more than I did about her. Although maybe it would have helped me if I learned about her. Who knows how that would have played out. But it talked about once our emotions get to the point where, we're beyond our ability to control them, I'm saying we always have the ability, right? We could always stop. But, at the point that before we get to the point where we're really angry and now we're acting, our frontal lobe, that is in charge of judgment is not, things are just flying by. We're just responding and acting, based on what the other person says. If we can stop before we get there, but that's really hard, right? To stop, because basically while we're still in our feelings, while we're still processing our feelings, if we can stop before our emotions or before we respond in emotions that we don't want to, it's hard for me. Sometimes it's like, I'm leaving, baby, I'm leaving. I'm not a runner. I'm always an arguer. So this is like, I just need to get out of here because it's just, we're going back and forth and I'm not getting, So in regards to my emotions, I've tried to I need to get out of here, because if I stay in the room with you, if I stay in the same living room as you, I want to banter because I'm so upset about the situation, So it's been some tool that has been effective and giving me a reason to go to Wendy's and get that $5 bag. You know what I'm
saying? That's funny. Junior, did you have any of those questions written down?
Yeah, I have them down.
Yeah, you want to shoot one off and we'll go off that.
So the number one I put down was the importance of sharing things that bother you. So is that important?
Yeah.
So like for me, it's important because I don't want to bottle up all my emotions and then explode at one time. Because you never know what's going to happen. You never know what's going to take you off. It could be just little things like a child coming and yelling and then all of a sudden you just blow up. So it's important to share those things that are bothering you because you don't want to have some kind of incident like that happen by accident.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I get that. I think I overshare. I might share too much. I'm like, I don't like when you do that. I don't like when you do that. But on the opposite end, like, I never have any blow-ups.
Yeah.
I'm very patient. I'm a patient person because I'm not holding anything in. But I'm sure there's a bad side of that too. So,
Hey, for me, it takes a while before I actually even say anything, and it's always at the worst possible time, and it never like works in my favor to the point where I'm just like, I don't even want to say anything. I'm like, I shouldn't even say anything. Like should have picked a different time.
yeah. No, you know what? Thinking about it, actually, in my marriage, I didn't say much. I just kind of let it go and stuffed it down. But I think after my marriage, I had this vow of honesty that I wanted to be honest with everyone. And so then it's just easier for me just to say it when it bothers me because I don't want to hold any resentment later. I think that's what it was. That's where the change happened, is my divorce.
The things that you stuff down are things that you think that could hurt somebody else's feelings.
I think it's anything. I think like it hurt someone's feelings. I think I didn't like the way that she left the cupboard open. I think it's anything, like
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's a lot of things that happen in between all that stuff. But
yeah.
the reason why we stuff it down because we don't think it's necessarily important to share it.
Yeah.
We don't realize how important it can be sometimes. And that's why, when you think about it and you sit down and you want to figure out how you want to explain it and give yourself that time to like process, then that's when you're able to share what's really going on in a way that you can have somebody help understand you. Give you some
Absolutely. What you got, Mikhail?
Restate your question. I have ADHD. Restate the question again.
The importance of sharing the things that bother you.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Junior. Thank you. Funny enough, I was thinking about it because, well, my primary relationship is my marriage. So I was thinking about it in terms of that. And what I was thinking about, what all you guys were saying was like kind of how we choose to do that differently with me and my wife, right? And so I'm, as you can see, like I talk a lot. So like we don't run into that problem. Actually, it's quite opposite. I talk too much and she talks too little.
Mm-hmm.
I don't do it perfectly, because sometimes I just come and I'm trying to bull over the situation, which doesn't ever help me. But I think, so sometimes I overshare, and then my frustration about things that are going on in my marriage that I have no control over, and maybe neither does she, largely around like boundaries being drawn and stuff like that. They needed healthy boundaries for, the extended family. I know that's a common issue. And our ability to sharing our feelings around the issue it's difficult because it feels like some of the issue, it's not resolved. And so sharing is just opening the wound again. And so that even though the question is like the necessity to share those, right? How sharing them's a good thing. Like, what do you do when sharing does nothing but reopen the wound? And at this time, there is no resolution to the problem,
That's a great question.
So are you reopening the wound to fix the problem, or are you just reopening the wound to resurface the problem? So for a solution to the problem, then you have to work through the stuff that is actually bothering you.
Sure.
And if you just try to hide it, then you're never going to resolve it, and it's always going to be an issue that's going to be staying there. But talk about the things that are really bothering you.
I think the situation they're in, as far as from what I know of it, it's a situation where you can't fix the answer. They just both don't agree on it, and it's continuing.
Yeah. So it's boundaries around certain people in her family, right? So the unhealthy things have happened and how we communicated, boundaries have been drawn. Hey, so of course my wife's still hurt about it. Hey, like I wish it wouldn't have went down like that. I understand, but I just would like to pretend like just forgive and forget. Can we just move on? And I'm like, hey, like there's certain things I can't allow to happen in my marriage. And, no, Nick, it's about just boundaries and respect and honoring of our marriage. And that's not happening with certain people. And I'm not going to force them. It's okay. But I'm not going to have them around at this time. Maybe some time goes by we can revisit them, but they're not changing, and that's okay. I just got to protect my marriage. Since our marriage is so new, it's fragile. And so at the beginning, any blows, I looked at it almost like a plant. Like it's like a baby plant in a garden. And like the wind comes or animals come and step on it. And like a baby plant, it's like, it's barely hanging on for life.
Nothing, nothing to grow off of.
Yeah, but if it's more developed plant, it could take the wind a little more, and it could take, it could take a little more stepping on because it's got thicker roots and it's got a bigger stem now that's stronger. So, and counselors have agreed. We talked to a counselor, we talked to the pastor. They all agree with how we're choosing to deal with it. The difficulty is the emotions for her and the emotions for me around her being hurt about it, bringing it up. And I'm like, thought we went through this. I don't know, and I'm trying not to talk about it too much because, my wife's, pretty sensitive about it, but she understands, like, to a degree, like, these are normal issues that a lot of people have and boundaries. Yeah. No, so there's really not a resolution per se, but there still is pain. And maybe it's me that I'm not being sensitive enough towards the situation because, that's
a genuine question. Like, what do you do when you have to agree to disagree and then no one leaves happy? What do you do?
For me, I relied on somebody else to talk to and be able to just get it off my chest and then try to find a work around it. And the other person has to do the same. Yeah. Maybe they just don't feel comfortable talking to you directly around it because it's what's causing the problem.
Yeah.
But if they have someone to talk to actually get some open feedback where they can actually hear, then it helps them dilate a new solution of fixing it around it to work with you. So always having that extra person to talk to is always helpful.
Yeah. We're doing a much better job of having, some other people, on both of our ends to, mentor us in the process.
Yeah. So, to change topics here, Junior, that first question, your second question kind of piggyback off that, right?
Why you should never hold things in?
Yeah. So, Chris, what do you think? Why shouldn't you hold things in?
Because you're going to explode. I mean, obviously.
Yeah. Well, I think you could explode. I think. Go ahead. Sorry. Go ahead.
I was saying just because I know from like personal experience, I've for Latinos, that it's really hard to express your feelings and be able to find someone to talk to and have them understand how you're feeling at that point, and then kind of like getting it off your chest, but sometimes just it's really hard. So for me, it's kind of difficult to do it. So as I've only had like Mikhail, to talk to about personal stuff. There has been points in my life where I didn't have Mikhail or anybody, and I just, kept it in, and I kept it in, and then eventually I just exploded. Yeah. Someone that I care about a whole lot, and it's something that I don't want to revisit. Being able to like express myself, and as you guys are talking about boundaries and learning how to do boundaries and being able to be open has been a big change and is very different from what I've picked up growing up.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, I didn't think anything of it. I didn't care about it. I thought it was just the way it was. That's the way a Latino man's supposed to be. But now it's something I do not want to do. I don't want to explode my kids, my fiance, or my parents, or anybody. I mean, besides, getting road rage, but that's a different story.
That's the only place you can let go of it.
Yeah.
No, that's good. I think another reason why you should let it out, and what could happen, I think sometimes you can fall into this really passive state, and then you kind of get depressed because you're not really speaking your truth. I don't, maybe in my marriage I fell into that. Maybe, I don't know. I'm not too sure. I don't remember much of it. What do you think, Mikhail?
Fine, yeah, go for it.
Why don't you remember much of it? Why don't you remember?
Honestly, I don't remember who I was. I was such a different person. So I've done like a whole 180 change. So it's hard for me to remember who I was then. You know, I
remember.
What was that?
Maybe you just don't want to remember.
No, I have no problem talking about it. I just don't. I don't think about it too often, so it kind of fades away. Like, I know I was passive. I know I wasn't a good father. I know I wasn't a good husband. I know all that stuff, but I like details of how I dealt with things. I don't remember.
To be honest, I kind of like being passive because I think it's hilarious.
Says the one who doesn't say nothing and then says he blows up.
Yeah.
Oh, he's really passive aggressive, I think.
Yeah.
He's not passive. He's not a pacifist.
No.
He's just passive aggressive. That's what it is.
Yeah.
That doesn't matter. I think it's kind of funny. I mean, because I've noticed that people get kind of mad, like because they're being passive and you're laughing about it.
Yeah. What do you think, Mikhail?
Well, I have to remember the question again because, as usual, I forgot. So someone restate the question.
It was why should you not hold your emotions in, right?
Oh yeah. That one, yeah. I piggyback off the first question.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's unhealthy, that's for sure. But then I think, well, I guess in terms of maybe a fear to express certain emotions because they are like raw, or this kind of piggybacks my next question, which is maybe like a sub question of his question, was like, how do we express sadness or fear, which I think would be one of the main emotions that we don't talk about the most. Yep. Because and the lack of that is us just stuffing it in because we don't want anybody to know, because we're afraid that people will know we're weak or we're vulnerable.
Yeah.
I
think sadness and fear are the two most that men don't talk about. Like, those have to be in the top, I think you're right.
So what does it look like when we hold in sadness and fear? Either one. Sadness, maybe for some of us, or fear, or maybe both. What does that look like when we hold it in?
Do you want to give an example of primary and secondary, just in case people don't know what that means and how they come? That's what you're getting at, right?
No, but I could. Yeah, I mean, I think it probably leads to that. Why don't we have our counselor talk
Chris?
about that?
Chris?
No, Junior.
I'm like, no, that's not me at all.
No, you're a mentor, right, Junior?
Yeah, I'm a peer mentor.
Nice.
And so not sharing about your fears and sadness, or not knowing how to do that, would lead down into isolation and depression and some type of PTSD. And so when you don't share it, you tend to hold things in, and so for me, I've learned to share things that are so intimate that I had to be okay with it. And being okay with it was learning how to forgive myself and learning how to accept others if they can't understand and be judgmental, that they would take it and talk about it with other people. And I'd have to be okay with that.
Mm-hmm.
Thing is that I'm not trying to impress them. I'm not trying to show off. I'm not trying to do anything. What I'm trying to do is heal.
Yeah.
And so showing my sadness and being vulnerable does not make me weak, does not make me look like a bad person. I'm just trying to heal, and that's all that matters. And when you're trying to heal and that's all that matters, you'll be able to share and get over that fear and get over that sadness.
Yeah. I think share, this is another question again, is showing vulnerability and talking about emotions and showing emotions. Now, is that strength or is it weakness?
a strength.
In our society, though, it's viewed as weakness.
Yes. Our society uses weakness.
It's very interesting.
With.
What was that, Junior?
Depends on the people you hang around with. So if you hang around a bunch of people that are criminal minded or very kind of like insensible to your emotions and stuff like that and feelings, then you're going to get the reaction of being weak. If you hang around with people that are trying to be like you and supportive, they're going to tell you that's strength.
Yeah.
Depends around the people that you hang around with. So if you get a negative reaction from somebody, they're just not at your level of knowing how to deal with your emotions and feelings.
Yeah. I would say a large part of, I agree 100% with what Junior said about largely who we're hanging around. Some of that could have been from conception or from our birth, whatever examples we had, there we learned how to deal with it initially. But I would say society at large, like movies and figures that were looked at with admiration of pop stars or athletes, right? That not showing them or showing the emotion of anger, right? Or being tough emotionally was seen as a attractive attribute. But I think in society, in the last maybe 5 or so, I don't know, maybe more than that, I'm not going to say I'm an expert, there is the, awareness of more of people wanting to be more emotionally aware and healthy, and that being an attractive attribute of what women would look for and men would strive to be now. But I said, in the 90s, I didn't see that. Yeah. I mean, I was young, but I that's not any of the movies. I like a lot of 90s movies. That wasn't what I saw. But now it seems like being emotionally intelligent, is something to be, is something to strive for.
Yeah. It's making a comeback.
Yeah, the 80s and 90s were hard. I grew up around that age, and I never had the intellectual, emotional support that I have right now because of the way things were, what I've learned from the streets, what I've learned from movies, what I've learned from music. I was a different person, and I never had any kind of emotional attachment to other people's emotions and reacting on it. It's like.
Now, do you think that's because your upbringing and the crowd you hung out with, or is it maturing, or is it just a time?
It was the time, and it was the upbringing, and the people that I hung around with. If I would have hung around with different people, I probably would have had a different attitude and a different personality.
Yeah,
I have to agree with that 100%. I feel like a lot of things that you're like talking about is kind of like what I have been through, where I'm just like, I don't like people. I don't care about their feelings, and now having kids is like, it's hard to get out of that mindset of like not caring about their feelings to, I have to care about their feelings. I have to be more emotionally stable, show love, be there, and all sorts of things that like I didn't see, I didn't have in like back then, and I have to show that it's okay. And even I still like my fiance, she catches me all the times like there's times where I am being like, caring, soft, and all that. I'm like 75%. Like, I'm not gonna say I'm like the best dad, but I've done as much as I possibly could.
Yeah.
Into like showing them that it's okay to be that way. I have a hard time with even being a dad, with emotions and feelings. So I totally agree with what you're saying, Junior, right?
Yep.
Yeah.
Do you prefer to go by Junior? All of my life I call you Junior. What do you prefer?
Well, professional status, when I'm working in a professional environment, I go by my first name, Romaldo.
Okay.
But people that know me personally, that are their family, they call me Junior.
I should have asked. My apologies.
It's okay. We're cousins. I mean, like,
yeah, I know. That's why I'm like, I should have asked him. I guess I didn't, Fernando actually posted in the comments. It's so funny. You'll have to go back and look at him later.
What?
Anyways, Mikhail, did you have to speak on that, or was that?
I think I did. Yeah, no, I expected. I agreed with his analysis of largely it's who we hang around with, but based on the times, it's been an evolving thing of our awareness of emotional intelligence. But the question I asked was, how do we express sadness? What does it look like when we hold in sadness and then express it, or what does it look like to maybe express sadness in a healthy way or anger in a healthy way? And I would say, because he mentioned Junior, I point down because in my view, he's right below me. And Roland's over here, and Chris is over here. So is that what you guys see too? Do we see the same thing?
No.
I see you across.
Oh, weird. Because I go down and you're right below me, like kind of like the Brady Bunch or something, It's like anyway, yeah, that a close family member of mine, pretty tough person, but I realized like I've never seen him cry my whole life, and we're not that close, but I realized like they're just the culture and the environment he grew up in, and he's quite a bit older than me, but just like. Sadness or crying is a weakness. It's a weak thing. And as I've heard him describe that emotion, not in a good way. And I realized like people don't understand largely, probably Junior, like you mentioned, in the right environment, many people would, but in the wrong environment, which is the majority of the world in their view, I believe, of crying or being sad or being weak or expressing that crying emotion is seen as weakness. And being strong and watching somebody, like whatever, people die and we don't cry, that's seen as a strength, when in actuality I realize it's reversed. Your ability to express that emotion and shows an overwhelming and unmeasurable amount of strength for someone to cry and before people and not care whether they're judged, because that's how they feel, and knowing that they're secure in who they are. Kind of like a man wearing a salmon colored shirt, right? Like he don't care, big or small, he's gonna rock that shirt. And it can even be tiny sometimes. Like, like that's kind of how I think a man's ability to cry is, like it's a health. And I saw my dad cry one time in a very sad situation where a family member died, and it was very sad. And he cried for like 3 seconds. I just remember him going, and my dad's dead now, right? So, like, I did his eulogy a handful of months ago, but like, my dad died. But when he was alive and this family member died, it was very sad. He just like cried for like once, like 1, 2, 3, and then he was like, pulled it together, patting me on the shoulder, and just kept walking. And I was like, wow, that's what it looked like when a man cries, huh? Like, it was kind of like a sneeze almost, Yeah. It just happened and it was done, right? It was just like, whoa, like, So, yeah, and, I think it's something that we definitely needs to be addressed in our culture, because it's men need to learn how to express themselves in a healthy way. And
do you think they don't because of fear?
No, it's because they're told
judgment.
But their fear of being judged, right?
It's the Hispanic culture. The culture is, for many generations, as the father always tells the child, never cry because you look weak.
Don't be a baby, right? Well, even kids, don't you fall, don't cry, don't be a baby, come on, get up.
Yeah.
And so it's almost
ingrained in your head to not cry because it looks bad.
Yeah. But what's interesting is, like, I feel like when we express our emotions, we're vulnerable, we let people know what hurts us. And when we freely give that information out. And to me, if you can do that, that's what strength is. If you're saying, hey, this is what hurts me, be careful with it, or whatever you want to do, that's a very strong ability to have that.
Yeah, it is. We're breaking the cycle.
Yeah.
The men today, the fathers today are breaking the cycle of the old heritage.
Yeah, absolutely.
We're showing emotions. We're showing sadness. We're showing fear. We're showing strength in that.
Yeah. So that's the premise. That's the premise of my father. It's to educate men so the generations to come aren't fatherless. You know, it's so like to teach us how to be a man, to teach us those things are okay. Those things make you more of a man. That's strength.
Yeah. Oh, I was gonna say this. I just lost. It just left my mind when I was thinking about this. I was thinking about my father. That's because mostly where I learned my emotions from, right? I remember never remember my dad ever apologizing. It's kind of not the same as crying, but it's admitting an amount of humbleness. And I love my father. You know, I had a father, and he was a good man. He did the best he could. You know, he did better than his father did. You know, like I never remember him apologizing. Not that he ever owed me an apology, because Lord knows I did my fair share. But like I never, I should remember never him showing that. Like, and I remember I apologized to my daughter today and got her a little bear or whatnot, right? And whatever, else I bought her a Coke over there. She loves Coca-Cola.
What emotion is apologizing? What is that? What does that stem from? If you break it down, where does it stem from?
Accountability, acceptance.
Acceptance maybe? Is it?
That's good. That's good. Yeah.
It's accountability, holding account for what you've done wrong and accepting the consequences and apologizing for it. That's apology.
So there has to be somewhat of self-reflecting when you apologize. So if someone never apologizes, they don't ever self-reflect on anything, right?
Yeah.
Well, probably very little, I'm assuming.
Well, they can self-reflect and say, well, I'm still not wrong.
How many people, do you think people do that? Do you think some people do that? Like sit there, self-reflect, realize they were wrong and say, fuck that, I'm not wrong.
I may be wrong, but I'm still.
Everybody else is wrong.
I might be wrong, but not as wrong as them.
You're like, hey, did you think about that? Did you? Yes, I thought about it, and I'm not wrong. That's kind of the attitude the person took. I reflected, and I'm not wrong at all. Damn it, you got me. Like, what are you gonna do? Yeah, that's been a situation I've came to with some people. Anyway, I don't want to get back on that. So get back on that topic. But yeah, it's like interesting. I'm like, there's no part. Yeah, and that was my father's generation too. My father never, you know how Mexican culture is. Like my dad, he was that guy, right? He was that guy. And he came from a generation where in South Texas, everybody beat their wife, right? And like, that's just how it was. Wife gets beaten. The wife is looked at wrong if she tries to leave. If she leaves, she's wrong. If she stays, she does the right thing. And then it's like, like that's just, the majority, I feel like the majority of like Tex-Mex Tejanos from California, like they share a lot of that same culture, and like men beat their wives and cheated on them. And that's how it was. Like,
It is. My grandfather, my father were like that too. No apologies, no sympathy, no emotions. Like that's how their culture was. And there were Texas, Mexico, Michoacan. Like, and that's just the way the heritage was growing up from.
Yeah.
Yeah. Chris, did you have any questions or no? I don't remember.
No. Okay. You should tell me ahead of time. That way I can have some time, bro.
That was my fault. You got another one?
I'm sitting there cooking. I'm like,
I know. Makal, you got another one?
I would say the necessity. What is the necessity for community and growing emotionally? Because we could try to do it alone. We could try to fight our own way. I know, like I have an idea and I could do better, because me and my wife keep each other in check. Like, are you telling your person about this? Are you doing this? Are you doing that? But what do you think the necessity for, community accountability in your efforts to grow? Is it essential or is it not essential? Can you still grow without it? Or
when you
is
say
it
community, do you mean one person?
Well, it would probably be more than one, because I don't think one is quite enough, if you ask me. But maybe I could be wrong, But in my experience, you need a few people.
No, so when I did when I started my growing and everything, like I told everybody, like I told whoever wanted to listen, I'm gonna tell you about it. And so I think for me, I needed a community. Yes.
Yeah.
I don't understand the question.
Do you need a community to be successful? Go ahead.
No, go ahead. Do you need a community to say you're effectively growing emotionally, growing, and becoming more aware of your emotional intelligence? What do you think the community
point of that? What's the point of that? Are you looking for some kind of a self-achievement? You want to get a pat on the back?
No, I think it was just what I needed to do. I just needed.
I think, can you do it alone? I don't mean alone in terms of like the work that needs to be done will be done alone, but your ability to be vulnerable and honest with people around you to be in a relationship.
To be an environment around that in order for you to change.
Yeah.
Okay, that makes more sense. But if you're asking for the community to be okay with what you're doing, then that didn't make sense. That's what I was asking.
Yeah, sure.
If you need an environment or community to have the same kind of attributes that you're trying to get and learn from, of course you do. That's how I learned. That's how I learned to become vulnerable, compassionate, empathy, humble. I learned that from a friend that I got that I learned in Narcotics Anonymous, because I'm part of Narcotics Anonymous. And so we get these things called sponsors. And a sponsor is a person that shows you how to work the 12 steps. These 12 steps actually show you how to become a man and how to become in touch with your emotions, your feelings, And so going through that, I got to see my sponsor, and we go to these things called campouts, retreats, and conventions, right? And so at these campouts, they would ask people to speak at them. And when they speak, they share their story. They talk about how they were from an infant growing up, how their life was to when they got into drugs, and then how they got out of drugs and criminality, and what made them change and how they continue to change. And so every time my sponsor would share, he would break out and cry, right? And I was like, why do you always cry? Because I still had that mentality of like, you shouldn't cry, Like it's not okay to cry and it's not okay to show your feelings and stuff like that. And like, I didn't understand it, right? And so like every time he'd share, like year by year, like he'd cry and cry every time, and he'd just break down in tears and everything. And I said, you're such a crybaby. It's like, well, you just don't understand. He goes, once you learn how to cry, that's when you come in touch with your spirituality.
Mm-hmm.
That's when you start to grow. And I was like, I didn't get it, right? And so like my years coming up, being clean and being in this recovery environment and stuff like that, and learning from other people and watching men cry and share their emotions and feelings, I started getting it, started feeling it. Was sitting down watching this one movie about a dog, right? And the dog got killed, and just the emotion just pour out, and all of a sudden I started crying out of nowhere and shit.
Yep.
Oh shit! And now it's like it's a faucet every time I watch a sad movie. It's
terrible. I'm like, what happened to me? What happened to me?
And so like that stuff helped me learn to become that way. It wasn't just me. I just didn't learn it all by myself. It took a community to help me learn that stuff.
I know that few environments can be replicated like a recovery group because of the rawness and acceptability that they have initially. Like, hey, you come as you are. But then the reality check that you get and find yourself, when you find yourself accountable to somebody and somebody that mentors you. Few places have the ability to replicate that environment. And I think it's a very, very important and very, very special place. And like I said, it's not just everywhere, which is sad. It should be more. Too bad it's not more places, right? Because it would be good.
Luckily, it's on this podcast.
I was talking to Roland about the 12 steps in Matthew 5 and the Beatitudes and the breakdown and like NA and AA and Celebrate Recovery. Like I was talking about these ideas. It's like, I don't know. Here's a question I have for you. Not quite on this topic, but it's similar to the 12 steps. So I can't really see how you can pull out the concept of a higher power of the 12 steps because it's rooted in the very beginning. So people who have a problem with the concept or belief in God, like how do they you know, I hear it's, my experience is it's been essential that they swallow that somewhere or another, however they do it, you know, but.
So
you know,
the idea is that they have to believe in something that's a power greater than themselves because they can't be God. You are not a God. Okay.
Amen.
There is something that is more powerful than you. May it be a godlike form or may it be another person. You know, but
could it be my father? That's where it stems from.
You know?
Or a V8.
So
a V8.
When people have a hard time believing in God, we tell them believe in the group because like the group is more powerful than you.
That's a good one, man. I really like that.
You know, and think of the ocean, the water from the ocean. If you try to stand out there in the middle of the waves, do you think you have enough power to hold that wave back, or is that wave going to move you?
Yeah.
You know, and so like it's okay if you don't want to believe in God or Jesus. That's okay. That's on you. But you do have to understand there's something more powerful than you.
I like the group idea. I do. You know, like how's the ocean filled one drop at a time, and then look what it is as when they're all together. Look what that is. So I really like that. Oh man, I feel like I had a question.
And I just wanted to say also that the 12 steps stems from the Holy Bible.
Yeah, no, Mikhail told me about that. I think it's very good. I think it's very helpful to a lot of people, and I'd like to maybe have a little small group of my father and maybe running something like that to help people who need that, you know. We'll see. I still out in the future. Junior, do you have another question?
So the other questions I had, I'm going to say them both because probably there's not that much time, but I just wanted to read them out there. So the expectations when you're sharing your emotions, what kind of expectations are you expecting when you share your emotions? Like, are you want somebody to sympathize, empathize, or you just want someone to support, or you want to be heard? You know?
What about guidance?
That's a good one.
No.
Yeah, expectations are a lot because I think we're going to filter our response based on our expectations that we've been preset. Not always, not every person, right? But I feel bad because I tell my wife, I'm learning to ask my wife in communication. So I'm learning. This has been a hard road because I think when she says something, she's looking for me to respond with an answer.
Yes, no,
as we all know, that's not what she wants at all.
No,
she just, a matter of fact, and I try to figure out. I'm like, so now I'm realizing, you know, like, so you just like as long as I nod my head and yeah.
Did you ever try to ask you? Did you ever try asking her? Do you want me just to hear you, support, or find a solution?
Yeah, that's been lately. Hey, I tell her I'm really stupid. I tell her I'm very dumb. Please help me. I need to know what you're looking for before we start. That way I know I want to give you what you want. Because if I don't, I'm in trouble, and it's not going to help me.
You call yourself stupid, but that's one of the smartest men I've heard in a while.
No, it's actually kind of putting yourself down.
No, but the fact is
you're
not stupid. You're being supportive.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, I try to, because she said, she's told me, don't you know what I'm looking for? So I try to play like, please don't assume that I know anything. But by me saying, I don't know, I'm dumb, you know, like, I don't mean I'm dumb, and maybe it's not good for me to even say it, but I want to come with that posture of kind of like, I need help. Where do I, you know, like, let me know what I need, because am I just responding?
It's less defensive, huh? It's less defensive.
Well, that's what I was saying. Like when they ask you that question, like, don't you know what I want? Well, then you say, no, that's why I'm asking you. Do you want me to be supportive? Do you want me to be here, just a person to hear, to bounce ideas off? Or do you want me to help you find a solution? When you ask that question, they understand that you don't know. You're not a mind reader. You cannot just figure it out. You know, so like, don't let them put you in that little box and feel like you can't understand.
Absolutely. I like that I have you here, man. That's a good response, Junior. That was good. That was really good.
Sometimes I respond somewhere. Sometimes, you know, sometimes she thinks I should know. And I'm like, maybe I should know by now. Maybe I should know. I don't know, you know? Yeah. It's been a, you know, it's been
the fact of the matter is I do not know, and I'm asking.
Yeah, if I did know, I would be on
Always double checking.
making some money. I'm a mind reader. I can tell you what you know, what you want.
Yeah, exactly.
I got this. But like expectations, like let's say you're apologizing to somebody for something you did. Are you wanting them to like forgive you? Are you wanting them to say, okay, I understand? Like the expectations behind what your emotions are showing, a lot of us are expecting something when we share our feelings. And so we got to get past that point of just understanding that we're doing this for us, not for them.
Yeah. No, I think I'm at that point where I don't expect any response from anyone because everyone kind of has their own journey and how they see things. And you have to not hold them accountable for whatever action they take. You know, it's kind of like if I tell you something, you don't agree with it and we have a disagreement, then we have a disagreement. Like we're not always going to see things in the same light, you know?
Yeah. And that last question was, who should I share with? So like for me, I have my sponsor. It could be a therapist. It could be my best friend. It could be my father. It could be my sister, my brother. It could be anybody that I know that's going to be supportive.
Or the actual group, my father.
Yeah.
Shameless plug. Shameless plug. You see how it works in all the contexts, though. See that? It just...
Yeah, it does.
That does.
No, I appreciate the call, guys, and I appreciate all you guys' opinions and being part of it. Thank you guys so much. Yeah, guys, we're gonna keep posting every podcast on every Tuesday. Every Tuesday we'll have a new podcast, and we have the next one coming up on Tuesday, I guess. Yeah. All right, guys. I will see you later. Bye.
Thank you. Thank you.
Bye.
You've been listening to the My Father Podcast. I have a favor to ask of you guys. If you found any value in this, I ask that you please share this with anyone who you think might find some value as well. If you want to find the show notes, become a supporter, or join our community, go to www.my-father.com.